Uja, greetings. I am Sunu Nahasra along with Shems Nefertem. Welcome to our early morning ancient Egyptian devotional dedicated to Goddess Net in all her mystic forms, gods and goddesses, who are derived from her transcendental essence. The liturgy, which you will be able to see on screen, is recited in the ancient Egyptian language, the Medtu Neter. English and Brazilian Portuguese translations is provided for you. You can see these translations on screen directly below the hieroglyphic text transliteration. You are welcome to participate by chanting along in your worship space, home, or wherever you may happen to be during the service. Or you are also welcome to listen quietly in a contemplative mode. Following the devotional, known as Uwashu in the Kemetic language, the recitation of the liturgy and meditation, called Uwa in the Kemetic language, practice, we will have a brief wisdom known as Rek in the Kemetic language, teaching by Sehu Khepera Ankh, leader and priest of the Medtu Neter Temple of Net. Before we begin, please remember to mute all devices. We will now begin. Presented on the screen at the moment is a stone-carved depiction of the facing pylons of the Temple of Net from the statue of Henat. On the left side and right side are the pylons in which one of the symbols of Goddess Net sits atop of a papyrus standard. Her emblem is her two arrows crossed and tied to her shield. This symbolizes the protection and resurrection of the soul within this place, the temple. Behind the emblems of Net, on both sides, are the flags, which mean Neter, divinity. In the center of the pylons, at the bottom, is the opening to the temple, and above that is a pyramidal structure which symbolizes the four equilateral planes of the universe and the mystic number 4. Above that, at the very top, is the cow hieroglyph, which means rising. It symbolizes the sun rising between the mountains, the Aket symbol, and for the initiates, the emergence of spirit consciousness. Net nesuma puneter emine. Jedef nesuma tepti net prokeru. Menket mert en hepset neb en kaem. Gary hep hert hep ssn em het net. Inat ren f jeta.
Net nesut me puneterhem inem. Jedef nesut hetap jinet pikiru. Winkel mert im heb set neb en kain. Geri heb hetep ssn im het net. Inat ren f jetam.
Net nesumer puneter hemine. Jedef nesu hetepine perkelu. Menket mert en hepset net en kain. Gary hep hertep SSN. Emhet net. Inan. Ren F Jetta.
Net nesut mihbu neterhem ineb. Jedef nesut hetep jinet pihiru. Minken mit im heb set neb in kain. Geri hebi hetep SS in im het net. Inat ben F jetam.
Net Nesumer Puneter Eminem. Jedef Nesu Hetepi Net Perkeri. Menket Mert En Hepset Neb En Kaem. Gary Hep Hertep SSN M Het Net Inat Ren F Jetta.
Net nesut mihbu neterhem ineb. Jedef nesut hetep jinet pihiru. Minkert mit im heb set neb in kain. Geri heb hertep SS in im het net. Inat aren F jetam.
Net Nesumer Puneter Eminem. Jedef Nesu Hetep Net Perkelu. Menket Mert Em Hep Sed Neb En Kaem. Gary Hep Hertep SSN Em Het Net Inat Ren F Jetta.
Net nesut mihbu neterhem ineb. Jedef nesut hetep jinet pihiru. Minket mit im heb set neb in kain. Geri heb hertep SS in im het net. Ina den F jetam.
Duamu. Erefu benefem heru akuti. Anate chekera. Nefer nebuben.
Duamun. Shet Efu ben F en Heru akuti. Anetej herkera. Nefeneb ubim.
Duamu. Erefu benefem heru akuti. Anate chekera. Nefer nebuben.
Duamun. Shet Efu ben F en Heru akuti. Anetej herkera. Nefeneb ubim.
Duamu. Kerefu benefem heru akuti. Anate tekera. Nefer nebuben.
Duamun. Shet Efu ben F en Heru akuti. Anetej herkera. Nefeneb ubim.
Duamu. Kerefu benefem heru akuti. Anate tekera. Nefer nebuben.
Duamon, Shetefu Benef and Heru Akuti, Anetesh Herkera, Nefeneb Ubem,
Ali Jen Sekert Sehu Kef Uhu Nesudi Hatep Neferkeru Bidi Eska Uabamunet Nefershepsi Et Ne
Nesodi Hetepnet Pikeru, Didieska Wabamuneb Nefeshepsi, Hetnet, Eten.
Nesudi Hatep Neferkeru Bidi Eska Uabamunet Nefershepsi Et Ne
Nesodi Hetepnet Pikeru, Didieska Wabamuneb Nefeshepsi, Hetnet, Eten.
Nesudi Hatep Neferkeru Bidi Eskaua Amunet Nefershepsi Et Ne
Nesodi Hetepnet Pikeru, Didieska Wabamuneb Nefeshepsi, Hetnet, Eten.
Nesudi Hatep Neferkeru Bidi Eskaua Amunet Nefershepsi Et Ne
Nesodi Hetepnet Pikeru, Didieska Wabamuneb Nefeshepsi, Hetnet, Eten.
Ua Im Shem Su in Nebejer Ursa Shu in Keperu Dua Asar Nebrestal Paut Neteru Aat Ami Netekert Anetet Hir Kekenti Amentet Un Nefer Ab Abdu Matentu Ai Ku Anek Ati Restal Seteka Sekert Aku Sari Nahas Ubed Center Set Mka Def Sit Neter Uni Entet Hena Yash Neter Asar Erdit Endek in Ari Heru Hena Herme Endes Ari Heru Aus Uwatepi Ari Set Ab, Ua, Neter. Abu Pen Ha-Asar, Abu Pen Asar, Spur and Hind. Arit Pert, Nahas Sa, Wadjet Neter, Asar Ari Heru, Hept Em Ha Set, Abu Yen Tuche. Meduje Yan, Aset Sam Ujat, Setep Saher Amseti, Anti Amsa Asar, Sa Amset, Asar Amset, Meduje Yan, Nebet Hapsheta, Ari Besa, Her Happy, Anti Sa Asar, Sa Happy, Asar Pu Happy, Meduje Yan, Net Seduara, Semesha Ru Net, Ari Maket En, Duamutef, Enti Amsa Asar, Sa Duamutef, Asar Pu Duamutef, Meduje Yan, Circuit Inka Ke Sekeret, Sa Ru Ned, Ari Maket En Kwepsunef, Entet, Amsa Asar, Sa Kwepsunef, Asar Pu Kwepsunef. Yanatera Emnuen Duacheta Yanatera Emnuen Duacheta Nebuchadnezzar Jen Anatesh Hirt Asar Putra Makdi Sake Setu Sakake
Nebejed Anetejhert Asa Putra Makdi Saki Situsakaki
Nebuchadnezzar Anatesh Hirt Asar Putra Makdi Sake Setu Sakake
Nebejed Anetejhert Asar Putra Makdi Saki Situsakaki
Nebuchadnezzar Anatesh Hirt Asar Putra Makti Sake Setu Sakake
Nebejed Anetejhert Asar Putra Makdi Saki Situsakaki
Nebuchadnezzar Anatechet Asar Putra Makti Sake Setu Sakake
Nebejed Anetejhert Asar Putra Makdi saki. Setu sakaki.
Adi Jen Sucker, Adi Duaker, Ekau Uashu, Net Net Duanet, Sefekira Senue,
Anet. Sefek keras senhues.
Net Net Duanet, Sefekira Senue,
Net net duanet. Sefek keras senhues.
Net Net Duanet, Sefekira Senue.
Net net duanet. Sefek keras senhues.
Net net duanet sefekera senue.
Net net duanet. Sefek keras senhues.
Amun un konsu.
Amut consum.
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 Om Amun Rapatan.
Om Amurapta.
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 Om Asara Heru.
Om Asa Sehu.
Om Asara Heru.
Om Asa Sehu.
Om Asara Heru.
Om Asa Sehu.
Om Asara Heru.
Om asa aset Heru.
Heru ma 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 Heru.
Ascend. Ascend. Ascend.
Aset. Aset. Aset.
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 Amahawera. Nefe. Ankuja sene. Arineteru.
Amau en Ram. Nebet. Ankh Ojaseneb Arineteru
Amahawera. Nefe. Ankuja sene. Arineteru.
Amawenran Nebet Ankh Ojaseneb Arineteru
Amawera. Nefe. Ankuja sene. Arineteru.
Amawenran Nebet Ankh Ojaseneb Arineteru
Amawera. Nefe. Ankuja sene. Arineteru. Duara.
Amawenran Nebet Ankh Wadjet Seneb Ari Neteru Duara
Nuk Atien Keperu.
Nuk Hatien Keperu
Nuk Atien Keperu.
Nuk Hatien Keperu
Nuk Atien Keperu.
Nuk Hatien Keperu Nuk Hatien Keperu
Heru. 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 Heru.
Heru
Heru. 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 Heru.
Heru 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 Heru
Heru. 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 Heru.
Heru 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 Heru
Heru. 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 Heru.
Heru 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 Heru
Dua tu heru. Dua tu heru.
Dua tu Heru Dua tu Heru
Dua tu heru. Dua tu heru.
Dua tu Heru Dua tu Heru
Dua tu heru. Dua tu heru.
Dua tu Heru Dua tu Heru
Dua tu heru. Dua tu heru.
Dua tu Heru Dua tu Heru
Nuk nebejer.
Nuk Nebeje
Nuk nebejer.
Nuk Nebeje
Nuk nebejer.
Nuk Nebeje
Nuk nebejer.
Nuk Nebeje
Nefer emtra in aton.
Nefer Remtra en Atom
Nefer emtra in aton.
Nefer Remtra en Aton.
Nefer Remtra in Aton.
Nefer Remtra en Aton.
Nefer Remtra in Aton.
Nefer Remtra en Aton.
Makelu and Ba Nebejer.
Mak Heru Genba Nebeje.
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 Nuk Ua Kua.
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 Nukmat, 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 Nukmat,
Nukmaat. 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 Nukmaat.
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 Nu,
Nut.
Nu,
Nut.
Nu,
Nut.
Nut,
Nut.
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 Asar, 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 asar.
Asa. 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 Asa.
Asar, 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 asar.
Asar. Asar. Asar. Asar. Asar.
Asar, 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 asa, asa,
asa, asa, asa, asa, asa,
asa, asa, asa, asa, asa.
asa, 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 asa.
Sehu Ankh, Jet Ruas Hena, Nefu Kepetu Embaat, Mdejasu, Sunu Imhotep. Aset Ua Suja Heru Suja Menut, Nebu Sen Efset, Efsen, Asar Aset, Etepi Suja Aulitu Yasor, Nesheshu, Nebu, Emhu, Shemu, Metmetu, Tau, Set, Nebu, Nesteta, Ua Menti, Heru Kut, Teken, An Apt, Tesu, Kem Hena, Sefahara, Dijit Kat, Hena Asar, Peta, Keperu Medut, Rakat, Nefi Asar Keperu, Uahai, Uaker. Nuk Aset, Perke Nayet, Ret Enal, Saturn Sa Medu and Jehuti, Tep Maat Empet, Ta Atert, Aset Neter, Nefer Ger, Hu Ankh Seske, Sde A Ament, Sa Enken, Pu F NN, Au F, Ready F, Nepkep, Dit Hetep, F Her, FT and NF Tawi, Uahai, Uaker. Heru Heru.
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 Nerai Mesra. Nerai Mesra. Nerai Mesra. Nerai Mesra. Nuk Khepera Mduau Ra Emahau Temu Ami Mesheru.
Nuk Khepera Ankh. Ra en Auf. Temu Ami Mashiru.
Nuk Khepera Mduau Ra Emahau Temu Ami Mesheru.
Nuk Khepera Ankh. Ra en Auf. Temu Ami Mashiru.
Nuk Khepera Mduau Ra Emahau Temu Ami Mesheru.
Nuk Khepera Ankh. Ra en Auf. Temu Ami Mashiru.
Wahai Ruaker. Seth. Neter. Neter. Mu. Neter. Jesse. Zisheri. Neter. Neter. Mu. Nefer. Jesse. Zisheri. Neter. Neter. Ooh, Neter. Cheseri. Zisheri. Neter. Neter. Ooh, Neter. Wadjet. Zisheri. Washedi. Watef. Aha. Aha. And Meter. And Oh, 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 tap, 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 tap. Peace, 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 peace. Attempt, dua, attempt.
Ujjain, greetings everyone. So today will be the concluding presentation lecture on line 2 of the special panel that we are doing from the Great Hypostyle Hall at the Temple of Karnak. And I didn't plan it this way, but it turns out the Neteru has worked it out that it's working out this way. We're doing a 7-week viewing twice per week on Tuesday and Thursday on our ancient Egyptian medical trip, a documentary about it, which is, I looked at it for the first time, not critiquing, not anything, not trying to tweak anything here and there, but just looking at it. And the documentary was actually shot and put together by a Sarmat. But I just watched it as a person just interested in the topic, and it's very nice. And you if you listen carefully, you get a lot out of it as far as health and healing. So I think it's something definitely that everyone should do. And that is coinciding with the conclusion, the beginning of that, which we started this week. It's coinciding with the conclusion of line 2, where we're going to talk about some of the parts of the brain. And I'll share with you a substantiation text from what is called the Ebers Surgical Papyrus. And you'll see why we'll do that in a moment. For now, remember the last time we spoke about how the eye is also presented on coffins, and they're placed on a shrine. I've seen some of them on a shrine and some of them in a box, not in a shrine. And today we're going to pay attention to the eyebrows. And the pupils, which is the main topic of line 2. But also this teardrop aspect here. And you can see how it all lines up. So this aligning of the parts is important, because it relates to the synchronicity with the vision of spirit, becoming synchronous in that realization and aligning oneself to achieve that realization. The eyebrows here correspond with the part of the brain that's called the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum here. You can see it has an eyebrow type shape to it. And the pupils relate to the thalamus. And then you have the brain stem, which is that teardrop type structure. And so, in essence, when you take on the yogic discipline, spiritual discipline, remember the main divinity is Jehuti. And recall in the temple of Seti, who dedicated to Asar, we were taught that Jehuti is the divinity that has bestowed upon the initiate the practice of yoga mysticism. And yoga has four major parts, four main parts: wisdom, devotion, right action, meditation. So Jehuti has bestowed that upon the spiritual initiates for the benefit of spiritual evolution. And when that happens, when you start to take on that process of the spiritual evolutionary process, integrating those four parts and then integrating yourself. For example, when you're starting those four parts and you're working those four parts and you're integrating them in your personality, and then you go to work and you try to hold your yogic posture, meaning your countenance, your demeanor, meaning your coolness. So you're diminishing your heatedness. The volume is very low. Okay, let's see. Hold one moment. Okay, so that should be better. If it's not better, please let me know. So when you're reducing your heatedness, you are synchronizing these parts of the brain. You're bringing them in accord. You're synchronizing them. And that brings about greater biophysiological health in your physical body. So you're reconstituting your physical body. And you're reconstituting your subtle body, your astral body, when you perform yogic disciplines in a manner as prescribed by the sages and taught by the preceptors. If you're not doing that, then your hormonal system and your brain centers functioning processes are disintegrated. And that shows up in the epigenetic effect from expressions of anger, or hatred, anxiety, frustration. It dysregulates the hormonal and the neuronal synaptic processes of the brain. And from a perspective of normal human life, that disintegration is perceived as normal, but from a yogic perspective, that condition is abnormal. And so the yogic disciplines reduces that disintegration, and the whole biophysiological process of a human being functions more qualitatively. And even if there is disease, there is the capacity to recover more efficiently. And by efficiently, I mean bringing the body in accord with the proper and optimal biophysiological functioning. So it's optimization of the biophysiological system of a human being. Because essentially, your body is a tool of the soul. So you are not the body. Your body is an instrument for the soul. And it's like driving your car. If you don't change the oil, don't do regular maintenance, it might drive, but it may not drive optimally. Similarly, when the mind is, when the biophysiological processes of the body are dysregulated through normal human life, and then putting on top of that improper diet, smoking, drinking alcohol, etc., etc., it's like driving a car where you don't change the oil regularly, where you don't do regular maintenance. It moves, but it's not optimal. And your body reaches a certain, or approaches optimization for you to achieve higher consciousness. Because to achieve higher consciousness, higher forces, energies start to flow through your body. And your body and nervous system needs to be regulated for that, to handle those higher forces and energies. That courses through your body. And in our AEM course, these are the serious issues that we talk about at great length. Like what you're getting now is a tip of the iceberg. It's not really the full process that we go through. So the corpus is the we'll start with the corpus. And the reason why is because this fissure between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. This is called the longitudinal fissure. This is an AI drawing. And the corpus callosum lays in here. And what it does, it synchronizes the neuronal pathways and messaging of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. So it synchronizes both hemispheres of the brain and regulates the proper synaptic flow of neurons and the bioelectric energy between the hemispheres of the brain. And again, that relates to the eyebrow. So what we are to get is that through the yogic process, and using the term yogic, which is an Indian Sanskrit term, the Kemetic term for yoga is simatawi. So through the simatawi process, you're enhancing and you're bringing to optimization the synchronicity of the left and right hemispheres. So it's bringing the left and right hemispheres to a unity. And this relates to what is referred to as Hetep, which is the dissolution of opposites. Now, if you are, and the reason why this is important is because when you are born, you come out of your mom, etc., etc., due to your perception of yourself as an individual, it creates the appearance of duality. So the body works as if it's a mechanism of duality. However, essentially, in your true divine nature, there is no duality. But since the body is functioning in a plane where there's a perceived duality, there needs to be a mechanism to reflect that higher consciousness. So the corpus callosum is doing that to synchronize what is dual so that the body can work properly. You follow? If there is no aspect that synchronized, you'll just kind of fragment yourself left and right. But that can't work from the nature of the inner reality of being, and it can't work from the perspective of sustaining animation in time and space. So there has to be a mechanism to synchronize the perceived opposites so that they can be an individual entity working in time and space. Now, when you take on the spiritual process, what you're doing is that you're disintegrating that perceived duality, and you experience yourself as a total. When you have that higher spiritual realization, you experience yourself as a total whole, the non-dual self, Nebuchadnezzar. And then you realize through that process, you realize that, oh, I'm not a dual being at all. I'm not a polarized personality. I'm truly one with spirit. But the body has to go on, so the mechanism has to go on. But that functioning of the realization of the non-dual self gets reflected back in your body. And so you feel differently with your body. Actually, the movements of your body slow down. You develop more gentle continence in your body. And that's occurring because there's a harmonization of the neuronal pathways of the brain through the yogic process. The brainstem, the brainstem leads into the central nervous system that coordinates the efferent and afferent neuronal pathways, sending impulses out to the body and impulses back to the brain. So I really wanted to focus on the corpus because that's the synchronization, the synchronization machine in the brain that's bringing everything together. The thalamus, the brain's central relay station, sensory and motor signals to the cerebral cortex, which is the matter of the brain. It's important, and now keep in mind this is the pupil. So it's important in regulating consciousness, so being conscious, aware of time and space thing, looking, seeing, feeling. So it's regulating your awareness of time and space existence. But the key is attention. It regulates attention. So what happens is that when you gain the capacity for concentration, you have 3 stages of meditation basically. You have concentration, extended concentration, and meditation. Concentration is just when you're sitting and you're trying to concentrate on an object or a hekal. Extended concentration is when there is no effort on your part to maintain that concentration. So in the beginning, images come and go. What you're trying to concentrate on comes and goes. And it doesn't really, you have to work at it. Extended concentration relates to the capacity to hold whatever object you're holding in concentration without effort. If you stay there long enough, then there'll be a true dissolution of the object. But, that's getting into higher metaphysical aspects that we don't need to talk about right now. And then meditation begins when you begin to transcend your physical body and gain awareness of your astral body, astral being self, and the astral plane of existence, which is referred to as the duat, where a whole text has been written about the duat. It's called the duat, which is the one of our classes. So when you're going through this process of building attention to extended concentration to meditation, you're actually strengthening your thalamus. And then that relates back to the capacity for sensory and motor signals being relayed more efficiently. And this is some of what we're talking about is the mind-body spirit complex that is not that Western medicine don't hold in high regard. It's more mechanical and not seeing the importance of the mind aspect and things like that. That's Western perspective. But in our ancient ancestors have taught us and relayed to us that there is an intimate connection between what is occurring in the mind and what is occurring in the body. So when you're building your concentrative capacity, you're actually having a positive effect on the nerve centers in the brain through the thalamus. And that, again, brings about greater functioning of the body. On a bioenergetic neuronal aspect. And in our AEM course, we do extensive study of the bioenergetic process of the human body. And it goes, it's a lot. And we do it through a study of the text, not just talking stuff. This is in certain documentaries and presentations, it is told that the ancient Egyptians didn't really know much about the brain. However, here is a mummified brain that I found in one of the museums that we visited. And the person it's related to is not. It's in the Royal Ontario Museum. And the ancient Kemetic term for brain is Ured. So in other words, this system of the eye synchronization and how it reflects to the brain is not done by happenstance. It is done by careful study of the brain centers. Careful study. And there are certain aspects of empirical study and didactic study of the brain that cannot be done with instruments. And we're not going to talk about that now. But in our AEM class, we do address those serious metaphysical issues. Here, I put this text here because what we're doing now is that we're debunking the idea that the ancient Egyptians had no knowledge of the brain, or very limited knowledge of the brain. When if you put it together, you see that they had extensive knowledge of the brain and the brain centers and functioning of the brain, and how spiritual evolution relates to that. So this is from the surgical papyrus, which is commonly referred to as the Edwin Smith surgical papyrus. But keep in mind and he got this, I believe he got this papyrus from someone, like when in the 1800s, when people were going into Kemet and finding these things, a black market developed where the papyrus and statues and things were being sold on the black market. And it is believed that this papyrus paper was sold on the black market. And it came to be called by the name of the person that bought it and donated it to a museum. It's called the Edwin Smith surgical papyrus. The same process with the Ebers papyrus. But these are not the original names of these papers. The original names are the secret mysteries of the Sunu. And what that means is the term Sunu means physician or healer. So the original name of the text is the secret mysteries of the ancient Egyptian healer. So I put this here as because we looked at the eye and we spoke a little bit about the brain centers reflection in the eye system, the left and right eyes of Heru. I put it here as substantiation for skull and brain knowledge in ancient Egypt. Original translation, Sehu Khepera Ankh, from this surgical papyrus. Jer Anke Eref Giriu Benuin KFD Dem Rasha F. Arerwat Keshtem Bu Janet Min F Jesu M Ne Bit Au F. And this is case number 3. And this surgical papyrus is like a treatise. It's like a modern day textbook on surgery. And so cases are presented, and you have the diagnosis, you have the prognosis, you have the treatment, and you have the examination aspect. So you have the whole system of how to approach ailments, disease, etc. So what I just read says, these words pertain to you, the healer, physician, the person trained in the secret art of the healer through the healing books and medical texts. When you're confronted with a person who has a bleeding wound, this should be wound, a bleeding wound to the scalp, take possession, that is to say, treat this incision for this person. If the wound reaches the skull and perforated or penetrated the skull of the person, if so, this will cause a great deal of suffering, as this is a traumatic injury caused by great force. Also, the person will be complaining of stiffness of the neck musculature due to referred pain or inflammation and infection, and or muscle spasms, and or nerve irritation, or nerve damage, or ligamentous damage to the cervical spine vertebrae. So here we have the term for head. So incision to the head, to the resha, in this case resha. This is a term for bleeding wound, benuin. So there's a bleeding wound to the head of the person. There's a technicality regarding this term F, but we'll do that another time. In this case, it means the person. It can also mean he, but it's also seen with female personality, so it also means the person. Now, if the wound travels down to the skull, the bone, the term for bone here is keshetem. So if the wound travels to the bone of the skull, so the term for skull is here, genet. And this will cause suffering, men. And if there's binding, Jesu, and the person complains, of the binding and the stiffness in the neck. So you can see the advanced knowledge. So if there's a wound to the head, it goes down to the bone and it perforates the bone. You may have referred pain, stiffness in the neck, etc., etc. So obviously they're stating that they can be the injury can cause spasms, and this spasming can be come from referred pain. So obviously there's knowledge of the nervous system and how pain can be referred from one area to the next, and how perforating the skull can expose the brain, and that can also cause neck musculature stiffness, and can relate to nerve irritation, nerve damage, etc., etc. So obviously there's great advanced knowledge of the brain and the skull in ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. And here I have if you go to the Mummification Museum, hopefully it's still there, you see that cross section of a skull. And what it shows is the process of mummification, of how they would pack the skull with linen. All of this stuff here is linen. And the reason why they would remove the brain is because the brain is made of soft, grainy matter, and it has lots of fluid around it, the cerebral spinal fluid. So they have to drain the body of fluid and then pack it, and they have to make the body very dry for the body to maintain its mummified form. And this is a whole process that is done by the embalmers. And they do most of it by ritual, and the priest will dress up as the priest Anpu, who prepares the body and opens the way, etc., etc. It's a whole metaphysical process. And here, these are surgical instruments. These are scalpels. So obviously they knew how to cut into the body, where to cut into the body, how to treat internal injuries, and where the body organs were, how to remove body organs, etc., etc. And I didn't put it here because it would make the presentation too long, but they would also perform trephinations. And how can you perform a trephination without knowledge of the brain centers, how it operates, the influences it has on various parts of the body and the hormonal system, etc. And these are amulets of the left and right eyes of Heru, left and right eyes of Ra, essentially the same thing, that would be placed in mummy wrappings or worn by people or carried by people, etc., etc. And you go to the museums, in some museums you see a lot of these, like they're a common amulet at the time. But keep in mind, for the spiritual initiates, it's not just an amulet. it's an emblem of deep spiritual mystery relating to the nature, the true nature of the divine soul. So when we come back, we'll do line 3. So that's it for our presentation on the eye. If we do anything more on it, it'll be touch-ups next week. But we should probably get into line 3. Okay, so dua everyone. Hope you are enjoying these short presentations that we do at the end of the devotion. And keep in mind the documentary is still playing. It has 6 more weeks to go every Tuesday and Thursday. You go to comedicyogassociation.com. You click on more, then you click on AEM2 for the link to get your tickets. Okay, dua everyone. Till we meet again. Dua Jehuti, Dua Jehuti, Dua Jehuti. Hit that. Dua everyone. Hit that. If there are any questions, you can send them to the email.